Hi guys, it's Rashonda, and I'm here to show you another drawing video. We're all about having fun here and trying new things because after all, creating art is supposed to be an enjoyable process. So in today's video, we're going to be doing something that's inspired by Zetti art. And if you've not heard of that before, it's really fun, it's kind of wacky and crazy. It was popular, maybe 20 years ago or so, if I had to guess, and it was originally created by Teesha Moore, and it was typically done as a scrapbooking exercise, but I like to turn them into drawings and just use the wacky, fun, crazy elements of it to create some interesting artwork. So let's go ahead and go on over to the art studio and get started on today's drawing tutorial. So let's go ahead and start with getting some basic shapes laid out and get some placements of where we want everything to be, how big this Zetti character is going to be. And so typically Zetti art is done, it's a form of art journaling. It's a style used by Teesha Moore, and it's usually done with collage type art, maybe some embellishments added in and whatnot. You can look into it a little bit more if you're interested. They're a lot of fun to draw. So this is a Zetti inspired character because it doesn't really follow the typical traditional Zetti art. So if you're familiar with it, you know the people in it are really fun and quirky, and there's really aren't any rules into what you can do. You'll see a lot of people with maybe like butterfly wings and crowns and a lot of stripes and checkerboards and funny hats and all sorts of interesting fun things. So it's a lot of fun. You can do pretty much whatever you want, anything goes. So I'm just gonna start by laying in some basic shapes. I like starting with basic shapes because it gives you a feel for what it's going to look like when it's done. And then it gives you an opportunity to make some changes if you don't like the way that something looks before you start putting a bunch of details into it. So I'm just making this character. Obviously, here's the head, the body, the arms, the legs. I put a hat on it. And then once we get, let me move that, see if you can see that a little bit better. So there's our basic layout of what we want it to look like. And then of course from there we're just going to go ahead and start by adding in all the little details. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the hat. There's really no right or wrong in where to start or the approach that you take. Often what I'll do is I'll start with the areas that I know what I'm going to do, the ones that feel a little bit easier. That way it gives me time to think through some of the other stuff. So I'm gonna make this hat, and it's kind of a cone shaped hat, but I'm gonna make it have some curves and a little more interesting. And then for the shape of the head, I don't want it to be a perfect circle. This isn't based off of reality. This is based off of imagination. So I'm going to have the mouth. So it's going to be more of like a little cartoony type character. Which something like this is a lot of fun if you're not very good at drawing people. then you can play around with some different ideas. And I'm going to put some little swirly eyes. And then I'll do a little curved nose. So as you can see, definitely not anything realistic. And then I think for the body, I'm going to leave it as it is. And then put some checkers in here. And you could make these wavy, which maybe I'll do that. Maybe we could make these wavy instead of just straight. We could make them less even than what they are. And then the arms and legs, I think, are going to stay the same as well. And make these little candy stripe. That's very common with Zetti art. And you'll see a lot of black and white striped elements in typical Zetti art, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Like I said, we're not trying to copy it directly. We're just trying to take some of the common elements and apply it to our art and use it as inspiration for what we're doing. So that's about it for the drawing itself. That kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. So now we're going to go ahead and start doing the outline. For the outline, I'm going to use a black Sharpie pen, which is usually what I like to use with my art. You can do your outlines however you like. Maybe you don't even want to add an outline. Maybe you just want to color it. I'm going to be using markers today for my coloring. That's typically what I use. You could use paint, colored pencils, whatever you want. But I'm simply just going over my pencil lines, just tracing right over top of them, and then after all the outlining's done, I can take a big eraser and just go right over top of everything and erase the lines. Now I could also use a different size marker or pen. You could use a marker as well. I like the pen better. I like the way the pen looks. It has a nice sharp edge to it. You could use a brush pen if you wanted some variation in the thickness of your lines. You could also use, like this is a medium point. You could use something that's thinner for the inside lines and have the outline, the outside edge of it, a little heavier, a little thicker, and then have the inside thinner. So it's always a good idea to experiment, play around a little bit, try some different things, see what works for you. That's how your style is going to be developed, is by experimenting and trying new things. You could do several drawings. I like to do a series of 7 of anything I do. I think it helps push your creativity. It helps you to think outside the box, experiment a little bit more, take some risks. It's nice because if you do just one drawing of something, there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves that it has to be perfect and it has to turn out the way that we have it pictured in our heads. Where if you do a series of drawings, then there's not as much pressure, because if you mess up, it's not a huge deal. You can learn from it and apply it to the next one. So I'm just taking this big eraser that I have. It's just it came with some kind of a drawing set. You can use a pink pearl eraser or whatever you got. You want something that you can go right over top of the whole thing and get rid of your pencil lines. Just make it a lot quicker. This one makes a bit of a mess. So there is the finished outline. And then the next thing is to just fill in these sections with some color. So I am going to grab some markers and I will be right back. I think I'm going to start with the black because I know I'm going to have some stripes and checker patterns, and I'm just using some cheapo art markers that somebody bought me as a gift. I'm sure you all know how that is. Friends and family, loved ones, they do these really kind gestures and they buy us art supplies, not understanding that art supplies are not all created equally, and often the stuff that they buy us, they get because they just happen to see it and it makes them think of us and they want to do something nice. So all that to say, I have these cheapo craft store markers that somebody bought for me, and they've been sitting because when I do my artwork with the markers, I like to blend my colors in, and what I found with the cheap markers is that the alcohol tends to oversaturate the paper, and then I'm left with a fuzzy, blurry picture. So I haven't really used these. I didn't throw them away. I didn't really want to throw them out because they're fine for coloring if you're not doing a lot of blending. Like just to color these in solid. And they are dual tip, so that's nice. You can do different areas with them. The only thing I don't like about them is when you try to blend, it doesn't work because, like I said, the paper gets really saturated and then the colors bleed all over really bad. I did make a video one time trying them out and using them, and it was okay, I guess. I just ended up adding a heavier outline, so it wasn't a huge disaster necessarily, but definitely not anything I want to do again. But like I said, this one isn't going to be blended, so thought this would be a good opportunity to use these markers. Plus the colors, all markers have, the colors are different, so it gives me an opportunity to have to push myself a little bit with some colors I maybe wouldn't normally use. I kind of have my go-to markers. And then what I do is I have this little scrap piece of paper. This is left over from when I cut out my artist trading cards, which this is done on an artist trading card. And I have a bunch of scraps, so I cut them down into these smaller pieces, and then I can use them to try out my colors and see if they're gonna blend together good and what the colors are going to look like. The markers don't always look like the way that you think they're going to. So this red, for example, the cap on it makes you think it's going to be this nice, vibrant, bright red. And it's actually kind of a little bit of a muted red. Not crazy about it, but it's fine for what we're doing. If I didn't use this, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't know that about this marker. So everything you do, whether it turns out exactly the way you would hope or not, it's still a learning experience, and it's still an opportunity for growth, regardless of the overall outcome, or I guess I should say the individual pieces of the overall outcome. Because once it's all said and done and it's finished up, this red being a little more muted than what I was hoping for is not going to be the end of the world. So, and that's one thing that I really like to focus on in my tutorials, is just the idea of enjoying the process, not letting everything feel like it's the end of the world, and just having fun with it. If you're not having fun, then what's the point, right? I mean, that's usually why as I'm talking, I'm trying to find a marker that's going to go with this red up here. I know what I want it to be, but I'm a little bit limited with the set of markers that I'm trying to use on this. What I really want to do is grab from my normal collection that I would use my go-to markers, but I'm trying to not do that. So anyway, one of the things I like to focus on in my tutorials is to make sure you're having fun when you're making your artwork, because what ends up happening oftentimes is that somebody's starting out trying to learn art in drawing and painting or whatever it might be, and you're working on your artwork, and then you start getting discouraged and things aren't turning out the way you want to, and then that ends up with, I stink, I'm not very good at this, I don't have any natural talent, which, news alert, is not a real thing. Talent comes from practicing and making art. You're not going to get good at making art unless you're actually making art. Nobody's born with the ability to paint masterpieces. Certain people might be born with maybe a little bit of an edge, I guess you could say, on doing things. Some people are more observant than others. Some people have more of an attention to detail that might help give them a bit of an edge. But for the most part, any skill that is learned is done through repetition and practice. So the last thing you want to do is to feel like you weren't born with the natural ability to create art. So that's one of the things that I like to focus on, is having fun, experimenting, trying things. And if it doesn't turn out quite the way you want it to, that's okay. You need to be okay with that and look at it as a learning experience, and to grow from it and then to try some different things. Try it again, look at what did you do wrong, and then adjust and try again. And that's why I love encouraging people to try doing the artist trading cards. Because they're small, they don't take as much time, and you can do a whole series of drawings in basically the same amount of time it might take you to do a whole big drawing that maybe you abandon halfway through because it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Then you could just do a whole series of drawings instead and be able to experiment and try some different things out. So that's it for this character, this little Zetti guy. I don't know that I'm crazy about the yellows. I wanted this to be more of an orange color, but I don't have the color that I want. Maybe this one would be better though. And that's the nice thing about markers, is you can always add a darker color. What I don't like is this yellow. I wanted more of an orange yellow color, yellow orange color. I don't like the yellow and the yellow on the face. So I didn't have the exact orange that I wanted, and I didn't have the exact yellow that I wanted. And like I said, I'm trying to use these markers. And this is one of those things, yeah, I could grab my marker. I know I have the marker that I want that color to be, and I could grab that from my markers that I normally use, which I know this Bic marker is the color that I had in mind for that. But the challenge is to try to use this set. This is the type of drawing that it's not going to make it or break it if I don't have the exact colors. So I just want to show you that you can make imperfect art, and it's still fun. I'm enjoying doing it, and it's going to turn out to be kind of a cute little fun character, so it'll all be good in the end. And with that, I'm going to take a short break and decide on how I'm going to do the background, and we'll be back to look at that. That's it for this little Zetti inspired crazy person, whatever we would call this. This was a lot of fun to make. The background, nothing fancy, nothing really specific to the Zetti style, just something a little crazy, a little fun. So make sure if you want to try some of these on your own, don't put too much pressure into what it looks like or how it turns out. The whole point, in my opinion, the point in making art just in general is to have fun, experiment, try new things, and see what you can come up with. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Well, how was it? I hope you decided to follow along and do your own Zetti style character. It's a good idea to do multiple drawings. I like to always do a series of 7 or sometimes even more if I feel like my creativity is just really flowing. It's a great way to develop your style. It's a great way to experiment, explore new things, maybe try some different medium or different techniques. So think about doing a series of drawings, and doing them on artist trading cards really helps with that and makes it a lot easier because they're so much quicker. So if you like this video, please do give us a like and then subscribe if you want to be notified of new videos. And I will see you shortly when we come back for the next drawing tutorial. Happy creating!